use case, okay, which I have actually tried to tweak it a bit. It's not as it is replicated, but we will be taking some project related use case today, okay, and trying to really break it down, okay, requirement wise, how exactly you should think, and let's try to together think about building a system, okay. So that's going to be the target of today's full session, okay. So I want you to really think along, for I think the new guys like who are starting in the industry or like 1 year 2 years of experience. So you will get some nice kind of clarity of how to think, how not to think, and even all the other guys who are already there in the industry, it would be some nice checkpoints for you guys also while we start thinking about this use case, okay. So now let's get started, okay. So we are going to take up some decent complexity, so which we all can relate to, okay. So it's going to have some UI related, server related, mobile app related, and a third party related, okay. So we are going to take a use case, and generally what happens is, if you go for some big companies interview, their 1 hour is going to be only discussion, okay. So their 1 hour will only be discussion and those kind of items itself. Now the thing is, they will keep discussing this, that, this use case, that use case, blah blah blah, and that's how the 1 hour entirely goes. And you need to understand that many times there is no concrete solution. Many times in interview, okay, you might be saying what's the right answer and how things work through, okay. So I just want to tell you that many times there is no right answer in the interview. When I am also taking so many interviews, I don't know what's the right answer. Okay, we just discuss problems. Okay, bhai, this is a problem. Tell us how you are going to solve. And based upon whatever the candidate is saying, we just try to logically interpret. कि सही बोल रहा है, गलत बोल रहा है. Yes, there will be technology questions which has a concrete behavior and nature, but the thing of problem solving, approach, strategies, there is no definite answer for that. Everything will have n number of pros, n number of cons. So we have to really see how the candidate is thinking and trying to make the right decisions. Okay, so this is how it is as part of that. Now the thing is, guys, okay, so let's see about how our design sense grows in all of these areas. Fine, I'll be sharing my screen. First, let's understand what the requirement is, and then one by one we will be adding more flow to it. Okay, so then let's get started. Take a second. Okay. So I'm sharing my screen and try to practically visualize these things along. Okay. Here we go. Okay. So we are going to take a requirement which includes, like we said, 4 components: UI, server, mobile app, okay, and a third party. And let's try to think around here what exactly we'll be building up. Okay. Now, there you go. Did you guys do some web application like web.whatsapp.com? Do you guys use WhatsApp on your webs as well, right? Okay, so some of you might have used it. So it's like if you just type in the web browser web.whatsapp.com, it gives you a QR code, and in your mobile app, if you just scan that QR code, automatically you are able to access your WhatsApp on your web also, and you can do typing and chatting from there as well. Okay, a similar kind of use case. So how many things are involved? Okay, so there is first a web browser, nothing but an application. In the application, there is the scanned QR code which is first visible. Okay, next, using the mobile app, you are scanning that QR code and then automatically you are logging in. Okay, so chalo, let's try to see this use case itself. If you want to really build it up, I mean, whatever they might have done, WhatsApp guys behind the screen, but logically, let's try to see if you are a UI developer or a server developer, so how exactly the journey would have gone through. ठीक है, क्या क्या करना पड़ सकता है? Let's try to analyze it together. Okay. Now the first thing here. So there are multiple pieces to this. Okay. First of all, if the user goes to the web application, you're just trying to launch the site. So somehow the backend should give you a QR code. That's the first essential thing. One valid QR code should come to you. So that itself is one use case. So now I'll open up a paintbrush. Let's start writing some use cases down as well. Okay. So the first section is as a UI component. Now let's say this is a UI component. This is a, let's say, backend server. Okay. So the first use case is when the UI is launched in the browser, this guy talks to the backend and somehow the backend should return back the QR code. That's the first nature of use case. Okay. नटराज सर की थोड़े brushes use करेंगे arrow के लिए. Yeah, sir is a paint guru. ठीक है. So here. So here in response, the QR code somehow comes and this code is visible on the browser. Okay. Now what we did is we and some of the people, okay, so whatever I'm trying to say, okay. Now there are two ways of doing it. So when you are developing any system, this is how your companies also think. Whenever we are developing any system, there are two possibilities. Either you yourself build the full system, okay, or you try to get this kind of a logic from somebody who is already providing these features in the market. Nothing but paid services. So you do a paid services which is already having all this mechanism and just try to plug it in the system. So generally this kind of approach will be there in IT. And now generally whatever applications we build up, so it is from functional perspective. Nothing but functionality needs to be built and given to the end customer. So this thing of like having a QR code, validating the code, assigning the phone and all that. So what we thought about is let's use a paid third-party service who will do this entire QR code management, processing whether the QR code is valid or not. And when the mobile app is used, trying to really process whether this app has to be tagged with that QR code. All of that mapping, basically, we purchased a third party for doing that. Nothing but QR code processing logic. We said ki we are not going to build it at our side. So we have to build first the QR code, then the validity of QR code. And when the mobile app is scanning, we have to do all of that logic also. So let's not do it. We said ki we will be using a third party. Some decisions will be made like this in your company so that you focus on only your related layer. Let the paid services take care of that. And there are multiple reasons why it is. Why to redevelop same thing which is already stable, tested. Many people are using it. So even money jata hai, de do, taki our development speeds up and we can focus more on our application. Okay. So now this is a third-party service. Third-party service matlab it will be hosted some other world. That's a different company, different REST endpoints which they are hosting somewhere else. So this is the third-party service which provides QR processing logic. Okay. And whenever these third-party services are there, they basically come up with two things. Okay. They will provide API documentation very clearly how to use their systems. So in your project also, if that is happening anytime, they will clear-cut give us the API documentation. Now, as per this documentation, whatever we received, okay, the plan was they provided us two things. One is the backend application of server should interact with this in certain manner. And then they provided us another kind of library. You should have your own mobile app. But in this mobile app, they gave some of their libraries which we should load so that we can scan their own QR code. So they provided us some way of working. I just want you to open up your mind and really visualize how the IT industry is working. Okay, so first of all, we could have developed this whole thing at our side, which includes first develop a QR code at our system, then maintain the validity of that QR code, then develop a full-fledged end-to-end app with all the features where we scan this QR code, then you capture this data, you send this data to your own system, then you validate that device against that QR code, and if everything is proper, then you log in, and that is all nothing but more and more coding and work. Okay? Rather than trying to build it up, many of the functional business guys, they focus ki bhai, we focus on actual functional application. These are reusable things. Let's see in the market if anybody else is already providing service, business will be okay to pay them as well. Like that, many services will be there. So then we decided, okay, so chalo, let's find who is this service. And mostly from the client side itself, they proposed a few names. We did some analysis, and then we finalized that there is one third party in the market which is providing an end-to-end solution for QR code processing. Now we have to integrate that into our system, and their solution was, one, there is some way of working where via backend server application it should coordinate, and there is some way of working where they provided some libraries which needs to be installed in the mobile app and then used as well. Okay, so far clear, guys? Okay, just write it in chat because this is the base context, guys. Okay, just write it, share a few dones in the chat, because once you understand requirement, then it becomes easy. Okay, just few of the people are typing. Now let me say this is mobile app and this is our backend server. It could be in any programming language. Okay, now abhi one by one we need to understand. Okay, so we need to understand the functional requirement here, what was required here. Okay, a functional requirement. So what we were saying is, whenever the user goes to this browser, so this is a browser which is a UI application, basically developed in Angular, React, whatever, a UI side technology. Okay, and this backend could be Java, Python, whatever, take a note, anything. So whenever the customer is going to the browser, he has to be given a QR code. Next, user takes his mobile app, scans that QR code, and he should be getting logged in the system. The user requirement is only going to cover this information. The feature, the requirement only says that. But now you have to really see how to build this feature end to end. And then we started getting more clarity. Okay, we have to use a third party which is going to do QR processing. We don't want to build this up at our side due to whatever reasons. So we have to integrate with them. Now, this third party is providing us a mechanism of QR processing. That means we don't have to develop this QR code at our side. The code should also be generated by this guy and given to us. Okay, so now how exactly then application works? UI, so first logic is we have to generate and give a valid QR code to the UI. That becomes the first requirement. Okay, we break karna padega because we have to develop the requirement. So the first use case becomes, okay, generate and show valid QR code on user browser. This is one use case which we have to develop now. Okay, now fine. So you would use all your Spring Boot related knowledge, REST endpoints related knowledge, and all the backend related positioning, like on that day Mukhtar showed cake, networking package aa jayega or IO packaging aa jayega, where you will write all your connectors which will talk to the third party providers. In this case, the third party is this one, and there will be a proper routing logic from controller to service, and then here where the request coming from the UI will be taken by your backend system. Now this backend system is going to further talk to third party provider. Now third party provider, there will be some API. The documentation when they will give us list of API. Now this third party provider in response will somehow provide us QR code. So that will be clear. So once you read the documentation, is it coming like embedded form, this form, that form? So whatever could be the pattern, but in response, you will get some QR code back from them. And then as a server, you can respond back same thing to the UI, and then the UI will display it onto their own browser. So, and clear cut logic will be mentioned in the documentation key, how this QR code we are going to responding and how you should process it and show it in the UI. Sara kuch will be crystal clear. So you don't have to worry about it. Okay, fine. So this is the first use case that you guys should build up. Okay, So immediately you guys will start getting busy. Okay, as a backend server application, how many one API we need to expose to the UI? What should be the contract of that, request of that, response of that? For the responsing, you have to even relate with this, because in the response some QR code should also go, and maybe some other parameters might be there. So you will then see, okay, from your system, if you want to call their third party, how exactly that is going to be, right? So we generally, again, yesterday we said, whenever we call external third parties, okay, whenever we call external third parties, you need to care about the basic nature of authentication, authorization, okay, and generally they might even have IP whitelisting, so that their IP is not publicly open, their endpoints are not publicly open, so they will open it only for your company. Okay, so some basic nature network level pe they will, this third party will whitelist your IP so that you can make API call to them. That is one. Okay. Second, whenever they are exposing the API to you for calling, that means you as a system will call their APIs. So they will provide some security mechanism. It could be OAuth code, okay, OAuth token valid. So you would be generating a token, you will call that token. That could be the thing, or it could have a certificate based mechanism. Nothing but RSA key will be passed. Okay, private public key kind of encryptions can happen on your request. So it completely depends upon what is the security mechanism provided by this third party, and they will even tell you how to do. Okay. So generally public private key mein kya hota hai? You generate the key, you share the key to one another, and while you are sending the request to them, you take that key, you encrypt your request with that, and then call it over the wire, and then they see it is coming from you. They use your private key, decrypt it, validate key, yes, the source is right. So matlab strong security mechanism can also happen. Okay, so multiple types will be there. Be open. Okay, don't keep a closed mind. IT may be open, n number of use cases will come. So like this, your system will call this. Now automatically you need to start thinking in multiple angles here. Okay, we have two kind of environments: production system, non-prod systems. So when this third party is going to give, first of all, they should give you a non-production system, because you cannot directly start hitting your request, because you are supposed to develop all this. So you need to get a clarity. Give us a non-production environment with all these proper valid details so that we can call you, whitelist our IP. So from our system, we will have a non-prod, they will have a non-prod, you just call them. Okay, now this is how this initial layer will be done. So third party should set up a non-prod system. Next, they should whitelist your IP. Sometimes they might say, no, we don't have whitelisting, so direct kar lete, but yeah, sometimes they will do it. Next, whatever is the security mechanism, you use that. Next, you read the API documentation, okay, what kind of request structure they want, and then in the response, whatever they are going to return back to us. Okay, so all of this thing will be clear. So you will end up developing all of that, and then once the response comes, you will be even giving this back to their system. Okay, so this is how end to end. But now you need to think about some more things, guys. ऐसे करने से it just does it functionally. But majorly, whenever you build a system, you need to always think about what is the tracking mechanism if something goes wrong. While you are receiving a request from this guy, calling that guy, getting a response from them, if something goes wrong, how do we know that information? So in such cases, logging should be very proper. Sometimes in the database, even log tables will be there. Okay, database log tables will be created where every request that you call to the third party, you would log it in the database, and every response that you get, you will even log that kind. Okay, so it completely depends from system to system, but the request which is going outside, the response which is coming in, generally that can also be logged. Plus in the loggers, it would be updated properly. So this all full information will be there. Okay, and generally, even though the user might have identity or no identity, if it is logged in, you will already know what user it is. So in your backend system, you should already have some cache mechanism, maybe Redis or some other cache, where the user identity could also be there. So if the user is logged in, his session ID will start maintaining, so that you have more information. Okay, from this user with this browser, whatever session he created, with this he tried to click a request for showing a QR code. So the backend should do this additional information tracking, which will not be even coming as part of requirement tree. So you should know who requested for that QR. That should be maintained in your cache information somewhere. Then you take that, okay, this request was coming. Next, how do you call the third party? You look at the request structure, you prepare that using your REST plans or whatever way you have. Write the code of service controller DAO, blah, 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 insert into DB, do the proper logging, and everything, call them, get the response, process it. If it is success, if it is failed, and if it is success, yesterday we said, right, handle all possible responses. So if in the response they're giving a proper 200 with a valid QR code, that means success, otherwise it can give a failed. So similarly, delegate it back to the UI end to end. So all of this work needs to happen as use case number 1, and that is a lot of work. So first, this setup should be there. Next, your coding should be ready. The UI guy should also code it. So everybody, first mocks will be developed. They test their own side, you test your own side, and then finally they come on a non-prod environment, maybe a development environment where they actually see this use case number 1 working. Okay. Now, generally this requirement even comes with some more twist. And the twist is, what if this QR code that is being developed, okay, QR code, whichever is developed, business requirement can, it should have a 5 minutes validity. Okay, but if after 5 minutes the user logs in, it should be done like failed. Again, a requirement. Okay, now since the QR code is generated at their side, so they would have to take care. But sometimes if the third party says, okay, no, we don't have a timer support right now. Sometimes third party say that also, okay, why we are a new company right now, we don't have a timer support. So in such cases, then you would have to develop that timer logic at your side. So whenever a response may, so guys, you have to be very flexible to meet the business requirement. So if they say, okay, we have a timer logic, well and good, you just, whenever this initiation is happening, provide it to them in the request, okay, how much should be a time window. If they say, no, in the request it's not there, it's a configuration in their backend portal. Okay, sometimes understand these third parties might give them backend portals, web URLs, or something like that, back office or some kind of tools will be there. You can go there and manually configure, okay, how the timeout should be. If that's not the way, then maybe in the request they will say, give us how much is the time expiry. Accordingly, they will generate the QR code with that much validity, give it in the response. So you should assume it is already taken care. Okay, and maybe whatever time you are giving to them, when you are showing it in the UI, run it as a countdown there. It completely depends upon your business requirement. But sometimes if the third party says, no, we are not going to develop this, okay, we don't have a timer mechanism, in such case you would have to build this timer mechanism at your side. So that adds more logic to be done. So whenever the QR code comes in response, you create a timer. There are abhi yahan pe aata hai, use your full Java knowledge. If you're a Java developer, how to create a timer which will run for 5 seconds, and when 5 minutes validity, let's say for example 5 minutes, within 5 minutes if it is not processed, how do you cancel this timer so that even if the app scans it, it should not work properly. So that could be another logic. We will talk about that one later. Okay, so a timer if you want to build at your side, let's talk about this later. Okay, but now comes the main thing. Okay, timer ka we will come to it, but now main thing, let's say this is developed and everything fine. Now QR code is visible in the user browser. Abhi yahan pe guys interesting hote chalti hai things. Okay, using your mobile app. So they have provided their own library which will be loaded in the mobile app. Now they provided us something like that. We did it, integrated, all good. Now when the QR code is visible on the UI, okay, the mobile app you are taking, you are scanning that. Now देखो multiple things. Browser to desktop mein, your laptop mein browser is there. as a user, you are not taking any action on the browser. It is just a web page lying in front of you where a QR code is visible. Next, you are taking your mobile app, you are scanning this device, and end expectation is all of a sudden your UI web page should change, and maybe you should be auto logged in. If it is a WhatsApp application, you should be auto logged in the system. Now, how is that going to be possible? Should the UI, because let's say 5 minutes like if that code is valid, like how exactly this UI should know that now I should get logged in into the system? Because now everything is separate pieces. Okay, you need to understand UI web page alag hai, bichare ko patta bhi nahi, it's running on the consumer browser. It doesn't know what to do, what not to do. It is only showing QR code. Somebody should tell, okay, the QR login has happened successfully. Now you get into a different window. Now that should happen. That means something special mechanism should be built up between UI and the server. Either the UI should continuously poll the server, am I logged in? Am I logged in? Am I logged in a loop, something like that? Or somehow maybe the server should push information to the UI using socket IO kind of principles whenever the backend realizes that the user is logged in successfully. There are n number of ways. This is where the design idea comes. How will the UI know that I should be now going to the next page? There are only two options. The UI keeps continuously checking with server, is the user logged in? But guys, 5 minutes mein continuous checking, like how many times, how many API calls will it do? What will happen? So those becomes problem. Okay, this was a blunder situation we realized. Okay, this was amazing. We were using an AWS service. Okay, it was AWS SQS service. It's a messaging broker. So it was pretty interesting. What they said is, we will charge you, AWS SQS, they said, we will charge you based upon number of times you call our API for polling. So it has a queue we wanted to read. They said, we will charge you, the cost billing will be done based upon how many times you call our API. And somehow while our test environment, we wanted ki whenever a message comes, we should consume and process it. Nothing but infinite karna hai. Okay, so then what team did is, we just ran it as a while true, because that was the business logic. Yeah, and whenever it comes, you read it. So we were infinitely in a while true, we were just getting the data. If the data comes, doing some action. And guys, microprocessors are super fast. Okay, itne sare instructions per second, and we called so many API. 2 ghante ke andar our bill was like so much. We said, stop. Because they are like number of hits ke accordingly they are doing the billing. We realized in 2 hours ki bhai blunder has happened. Our microprocessor is hitting so many requests because it's running in a while loop. We have to immediately bring it down even in the test environment, but cost 2 ghante mein bahut zyada. Then we realized, okay, let's narrow it down to a 10 seconds delay. So then the cost was pretty limited. The second mein ek request or even 5 seconds one request, it was pretty low. So it was okay to manage. But just telling ki this is how the real world is, how many times the API call happens, who calls, what happens. So you have to think about it. Here we have a situation. Now UI is there. Either the UI should continuously call the server. So QR code is visible, but backend mein the UI is continuously calling server. Tell me, am I logged in? Am I logged in? Am I logged in? And we don't know because 5 minutes is a lot of time. How many times it will call? And let's say if you set up a frequency, I'm just trying to open up use cases. If it sets up a frequency every 5 minutes karo, is that a good approach from customer perspective? Not sure, because it's just barcode. Customer is scanning the barcode and he's waiting because UI don't know whether he has logged in or not. Every 5 seconds interval pe the data is coming. Customer will be like, "Arey, main to kar liya already scan. Why is nothing happening on the screen?" He might end up just closing the browser. So that's not a good user experience. Basically, it should be as soon as the user scans the barcode, immediately some change should happen in the UI, which should inform to the customer, okay, now we are taking you forward. That means some sensations should go through, and your mobile app is not talking to your UI, it's just scanning. Image ja raha hai. That means there is no communication between your mobile app and the UI, and UI has to have some action. Now that's a problem statement. How will you solve it? And UI cannot periodically call it because that's a bad user experience. So other way could be whenever the server, if somehow the server knows the login is successful, then the server pushes it to the UI. So and that's a big piece now. If you have to develop a socket IO, you need to know all the open ports. It is cost expensive, RAM expensive, memory expensive. You have to build in a full in technology here, socket IO related, or in maybe Spring some networking stuff will be there. But you need to know if there are like many customers on the planet, all of their information will be there. Server will push. Now it comes, how will you develop it? And now you have to understand the behind the screen story. How will your system know that the user is successfully logged in? Okay, so now that is where once you start brainstorming, you get these questions. Okay, now let me just pitch it up then. So our one open question is how UI would know that user is successfully logged in. Okay, UI continuously calls or backend pushes. And you need to understand whether you are a fresher, whether you are any number of experience, this is a requirement, it came to your project. Now, based upon your experience, you will involve at a different layer, but you need to have this sense of what exactly you guys are doing. ऐसा डमी नहीं कि भाई मेरे को सिर्फ यहाँ पे ये API लिखना है. You need to understand what's happening in your system. What is the requirement first of all? Even as a fresher, you need to understand this full requirement. Then only you can do your role properly wherever it applies. So fine, this is one question right now, open statement. How exactly this needs to be done? Now the another thing, there is no connection between UI and mobile app. So how will your system ever know that the login has happened successfully? Okay? Then we understood, we started digging more about it. So then we realized what happens is, as soon as the mobile app is scanning this QR code, the mobile app is directly communicating to the third party because the library which they provided was directly inside. So this mobile app is directly talking to the third party. Okay. So somehow the third party knows, yes, this QR code is generated at my side. When the QR code is scanned, behind the screen in that QR code, there is embedded data. So when the mobile app is scanning that, it even retrieves that data from the QR code. Plus it takes the phone identity. So let's say WhatsApp is installed in your phone. So it will take all that identity. Who is this user? What is this user? All of this information will be communicated securely using their libraries. It will be communicated to their backend API. And that's what, guys, security and all that is very critical aspect here. That is where companies might say, okay, well, let's go ahead with somebody who has already developed. Why to build all that thing by ourselves? And then fine, then isko to pata chale. So he knew it, ke bhai, yes, QR code is valid and device details also reach to him. Now it's our business application. If he knows, what do we do about it? He should send this information to our system. And generally, these backends, they cannot communicate to the UI browsers. They talk to servers, right? Their system should talk backend wise to our system. And then from our system, we have to make some decisions. Nothing but, यहाँ पे अभी क्या होगा guys? You as a backend system, you have to expose an API which will be invoked by third party. So here you were invoker. Now you will be a listener of some API as well. So you would have to now write another API somewhere in your system, and where this guy is going to call this API in order to communicate information to you, whether the user is logged in the QR code successfully or not. He makes an API call to you. Okay, so you need to understand, as a backend developer, you opened one API for your own UI application to call. Another API you are exposing so that this third party will be calling. Again, you need to maintain the same disciplines when these API is exposed. authentication related principles, IP whitelisting, and validating, that request tampering related. So when actually that private public key encryption is enabled, so data tampering takes care by that itself. If you use a OAuth mechanism, that also does. So it completely depends upon what mechanism you guys use in your application. There are multiple ways of doing it. Some people go as basic as just SHA-256. So they have the credentials, they generate something, you try to reproduce at your side, match the credentials, and if it is okay, how exactly SHA-256 algorithm, you take a fixed string, develop a SHA-256 on that, you get a random code. It is a unique code which will be generated only for that kind of string, and then those guys generate it and give it to you. Next, you would have their credentials already with you because you have done some integration with them. So using their credentials, you will also generate a SHA and you will match these two SHA-256 patterns with one another. If it is valid, you take it inside. One way of doing it. Or another way of doing it. Okay, public private key, third way of doing it. Okay, so like that, n number of ways, but you need to define. And okay, can you go ahead with a JWT token here? That could also be one of an option, but देखना पड़ेगा. Okay, some mechanism you have to write, expose, and then come inside from here. Fine. Now it comes in, it tells you that the user has successfully logged in. Now you need to understand, how will this backend server know कि कौन से user की बात चल रही है? Just try to logically think through. Right? There are like thousands of people who will use, thousands of scans which will go. So that is where whenever systems connect with each other, some identity needs to be tracked of that particular activity. What does this mean? When this user tried to do some activity for generation of QR code, so the backend system should have precise tracking. Okay, this user session ID wants a QR code. In your backend, in your Redis cache or your DB, wherever, you should maintain that information. So and so user wants the QR code. Accordingly, it calls the backend API. In response, the backend API, third-party API, should give some unique ID to you, which is specific to this QR code. This ID comes, and now you have to maintain that in your system. And then they will say, when we notify this thing to you, we will provide the same unique ID back again. So whenever you build these systems, you need to care about this uniqueness very properly. You need to build your caches, data structures in a manner, getting this user unique ID, you will be able to retrieve that QR and then the identity of the user, and then plan your further actions. That is where comes your maps and all that usage very properly. Key value kaise organize, you will do it. Or in your Redis, if you are storing it, so how will you keep things there? Okay, something. Now that is how, so that's the next use case. Now simple requirement chota tha, but you have to do all of this in order to build it. Okay, now the next requirement is open public endpoint. So open an endpoint for third party to consume. Now when you say high level discussion mein, what will happen? This will happen in high level discussion. They will read the documentation. They will see like where what needs to be done, how this entire flow will be. Now a lot of brainstorming will happen about each and everything. If fields are not clear, this is not clear, how can we do this, how can we do that? All of that comes as part of your analysis and design. We are not even thinking about low level mein code kya karna hai. We are just thinking how the full functionality can be achieved from a broader view. This is high level tech finalization. Where you will be doing the DB calls, where how the logs could be, how this communication will be, will there be any hiccups? For each possibility, you need to think positive hua to what will happen? If it is successful QR code, what will happen? If it is failed QR code, what will happen? Let's say you call the third party says no, QR code we are not able to generate. Error could happen at their system also. If error happens, then what do you tell to the UI? Then as a browser, what option should come? Should it be like regenerate QR, or how it should be? Now end to end functionally you have to build the system from the perspective of end user. और ये बेचारे को पता भी नहीं है कि what all pain is happening behind the screen to make his requirements work. he is like काम नहीं कर रहा है, clicking. अरे रुक जा भाई, बहुत कुछ हो रहा है पीछे. Lot of things are going on. So we have to think the requirement from the perspective of end user. That is where that is called as user story. It will not include much of technically what you guys are going to do. It will talk about functional requirement from the perspective of end user. That is where in Agile the requirement is called as user story. They will say, as a new customer into your system, or let's say as an existing customer in your application, okay, I want to scan the QR code to auto login to your service. As simple as this requirement is there. And guys, for doing this full work, it might take what, 3 weeks, 4 weeks? Because everything has to be tested. Every layer can have positives, negatives, network timeout scenarios at every place. You have to have the errors properly handled. You need to have the logs proper in place. You need to have their non-prod environment up and running properly. You integrate with that. You need to have your system developed, integrated with one another, tested. It's a lot of work. And you have to keep an eye that no major case gets missed out while you're building all of these things. And now yahan tak to pahunch gaya. So this is simple stuff. You opened an API, you took care again of the security related principles, you whitelisted blah blah blah. Now that guy is calling it. Now you know, based upon unique ID, you saw, oh, this guy gave us this unique ID. You will see this unique ID is mapped to this customer, and now that means it is successfully logged in. So now we can, server now knows it, that the user is successful login, but now our still question remains, how will the UI know? Server ko to pata chal gaya, because backend communicated. Now it is our responsibility to delegate this information from server to UI so that UI can actually get him inside the system. Okay, now we were really brainstorming it very hard ki bhai kya kare. Socket.io such mein, it was pretty heavy. Socket.io is like new setups, new installations. We have to, for a simple use case, one use case which will ever come. Socket.io we were discussing and it was looking so much painful. We started talking to our leads and like kare, nahi kare. Okay, he came up with a very beautiful solution while we were discussing with one of our members. That's what is brainstorming. You actually try to put yourself there. While we were discussing about it, one person said one concept ki bhai, do it via long pooling. Okay, he said implement long pooling, your use case will be handled with very ease. And then we started exploring. That's it, public just ek naam bolti hai. He just suggested experiment long pooling and your work will be done. Abhi now as a technical team, you have to go Google what is long pooling, how does it work. Once you understand that, you need to see whether long pooling fits your requirement which you are trying to develop. You need to be actively thinking end to end. Clarity is required as a tech developer. You need to think, this long pooling, will it really work for us? You have to consider the customer experience, not like after some time you are doing it. It should be instantaneous. As soon as the scanned, user gets in. Okay. Now you have to see whether long pooling can really meet it. For that, you understand first how long pooling works. Then try to relate it here. If you feel it will work immediately, now you have to then Google more how to implement long pooling using, let's say, Java, maybe Spring Boot, or UI, what handling should happen in the UI side, because long pooling is something common between now UI and the server. Both of the guys have to do certain things. And then फिर explore करना पड़े. And then you would have to build up your own POC application for that, which is outside whatever this everything is happening. And then you see, and then like, wow, chal gaya. Okay. And then you take that code and plug it in your system. So what exactly long pooling was? Okay. It's a pretty simple stuff. Key. Okay. UI should continuously call server, but the behavior is different. Okay, UI should call a server. Let's say UI is calling the server. Okay, that tech lead told us ki bhai, don't implement. In fact, we went to even an architect for this discussion. He said, man, don't implement Socket.io. It's like a lot of heavy thing for a very small thing you're trying to do. Do long pooling, it will meet your requirement. That's what comes with experience. Okay, and this is like I'm taking a very many years old requirement, but just wanting to show you how big pieces connect. उसके बाद तो हमने बहुत कुछ बनाया है, right? But yeah, this is a thing which I just felt like sharing with you. Now what happened? So UI calls the server backend. Okay, now this will wait. Long pooling is it will wait for response. It will pool for response for some defined amount of time, and you can configure how much time it is. Let's say you're saying 20 seconds. There is this thought process. This 20 seconds, a request coming from UI, and you know how the UI is, right? It's Ajax. Nothing waits. It's very fast optimized. The UI calls it and it's single threaded JavaScript single threaded. It calls it and it can still do a lot of other things. But whenever response comes, it will process it. So what long pooling is, the UI calls the server and then waits for the response for 20 seconds. Okay, now within this 20 second, anytime server patches up the response, it could be 5 seconds, 7 seconds, anytime. In this anytime, server responds, yes, the login is successful. From their point itself, it will break and it will give the response back to the UI. If let's say after 3 seconds it comes, it immediately gives. So now what is happening? The maximum time waiting is 20 seconds, and within that, anytime it comes. So let's say the user took the mobile app, scanned the app, and then this long polling is continuously running. This thing happens, it validates successfully, it notifies, and then server maps it. Whenever that happens, immediately the UI knows, okay, everything is good, let's go forward. Okay, and the thing is, if it doesn't respond, let's say there is a long time happening, user को अपना phone ही नहीं मिल रहा है, वो phone ढूंढ रहा है बस scan करने के लिए. So polling is then continuously running 20 seconds. As soon as the full 20 second runs, then the UI makes another polling call. So like how much? We are talking about what? 5 requests per minute. Okay, that's a smaller one. 5 requests per minute. It's a smaller one. Okay, so again 20 second ka chalega. That's it. This will keep happening. So per minute 5 requests is a very nothing load basically. It's a very smaller thing. It will keep continuously running. You just have to make sure while you are building this logic, if it is happening, that is where yesterday we said one case. When you write code, or I don't know whether we said or not, when you write code, you have to consider positive case, negative case, edge cases. So यहाँ पे automatically question comes, edge case scenario, everything is happening real time. What if 20 seconds are done here, then the server got the response and it is making the call after, let's say, 21st second. So we need to properly ensure that the response is properly picked and given back to that guy. And while the counter is running, in that response comes, it should be taken, given back to that guy. So you have to make sure that these no cases left in between, and you keep running this for maybe 5 minutes. And after that, anyways, the code will be invalid. The polling will stop. You might get an option, regenerate QR code, and accordingly it happens. Okay. So point is, this is how real world applications are actually developed. There will be some requirement. You have to figure out under the hood story of how to convert that requirement into a technical stuff. And like we discussed already earlier, basic things are always going to remain the same no matter what application you take. Why? Where you are going to use caching. Will there be a NoSQL database or a SQL database? Okay, how do you capture this request and response? How do you use the security related protocols? Like how will you ensure all these things? Okay, and then how do you expose API? How do you write an API where the UI talks to you guys? Okay, next, how do you do proper response handling? How do you capture errors? And is there an error code mechanism properly implemented? You and always it is like error code, error message, something like that. And then is it properly handled across it? Basically, every application will have only the same these things. That's the reason while we were discussing that code snippet on last Monday, this Monday itself, we touched on all of that as part of your packaging, because that's what will be there. The application requirements will just keep changing, but the basic nature of the project always remains the same. Okay? And this is how भी देखो यहाँ पे और भी things हैं. As you start thinking more deeper about it. So guys, so far clear? Just put a few things in the chat. Okay, and the new guys who are there, let me tell you, देखो, whether this looks complicated or simple, but these kind of use cases will be there. Maybe not so many pieces talking with each other, but दो तीन चलते रहता. This is common thing. Okay, this is not very high fundas. API exposing, API calling, security thinking. This happens for every project. Okay, maybe खाली mobile app को लाके थोड़ा behavior change हो गया, but rest of the story of API communications, logins and all that is for every project. Okay, nice. So many people are getting the things through. Okay, good to know. Good to know. So guys, now you need to understand requirements does not see your experience, whether you're junior, senior. Requirement is only a requirement. अब वो बनाना पड़े. Now, this is where it comes to a situation कि in your project, do you have the right guys who can make these decisions? And if you are working for, let's say, mid-scale companies, small-scale companies, you have to then come up with some things. Even with 3 years of experience, people will be like, "Bana kuch to," build up something. And that is where I would say कि in the beginning of your career, if you work for really small to medium companies, you will get a lot of exposure. There will be smart people there, lot of challenges will be there. Okay, and you will be like, decisions will happen like that. Okay, if you work with big giants, it will teach you something else. Okay, generally slow systems, slow processes, big teams, things move very slow there. Okay, but if you're working with narrow teams, less teams and all that, small companies, mid-sized companies, full exposure milega, end to end brainstorming. I still remember, like, because I worked in startups, so I know that kind of culture, how different it is. I work with service also, I know that kind of culture also. But yes, it is just to tell you, the more you do, the better you will get. There are some service companies, big companies, where challenging projects are there, complicated, challenging, high pace. They have those kind of projects, but it completely depends where you get through. Okay, but the conclusion always lies, the more you do, the better you will get. Okay, the more you do, the better you will get. And you need to understand, guys, only knowing technology is not enough to build applications. You might keep doing just technology. It is not enough to build real applications. Real applications will be built when logic evolves here, how things should be. When you see systems, when you do brainstorming at your day-to-day job, how to build this feature, what could be the challenges, then only your brain will evolve. And that's what is actual experience. And it cannot be mimicked. It has to be learned. Okay, now there are some websites, okay, highscalability.com. I already told that name earlier, highscalability.com. There are so many use cases explained about how companies evolved, how their challenging systems evolved. If you spend time in reading these kind of blogs, where more and more use cases are explained, okay, hey, we had this kind of requirement, we did like this, there were challenges, then we changed like this, there were challenges, then we changed like this. The more time you spend in reading these kind of systems, then maturity will start. And then again, question comes, okay, now right now we just spoke so much about this flow. This is high level paper plan. This is the blueprint. The high level plan is ready. But now again comes the question, how will you implement all these things? वो तो रह गया, अभी तक कोडिंग शुरू भी नहीं हुई है. Approach finalization itself was so much. Now this has to be broken down into smaller stories, smaller user stories. Sub task के अंदर बहुत ज़्यादा description लगेगा, इधर क्या, and accordingly things will go. Okay, so just understand all this. Okay, and guys, देखो, unfortunately, let me tell you, earlier I was thinking कि because I got very challenging. I will say I'm lucky enough in the IT industry to really expose to a lot of complicated scenario, and I got some very good people to work with. So in my right from the beginning days, so I never worked with any compromised people. Like I had always good seniors to mentor, guide, coach, and then they were showing everything. Like from fresher perspective, they guided me like anything right from there. And then while I was growing also, so I got very nice team who are very smart people, innovative, like aggressive. They want to do things. So I never got a chance to work with average people. Okay. So I thought कि maybe industry ऐसे ही होती है. But then later on, I started realizing that that's not the truth. There are projects where things are very relaxed. In my beginning days itself, while I was in 4 years experience, 5 years experience, there I realized that not every project is having that pace and that kind of coaching and all that. So then I realized slow. Abhi recently, guys, yesterday incident only, and after that, many people keeps dropping messages to me on LinkedIn or Facebook. Here is our project mein, I am there in the IT, money, everything is coming, but project mein there is no learning. Nobody is like giving any requirement. Okay. I'm on bench since past 6 months. Nothing is happening in my project. Yesterday somebody told to me, yesterday incident itself, they said ki I signed, went, now I am in a company, 2 years bond. I completed my 3 months training. Now the company is saying we don't have a project. Okay, and then I discussed कि अभी क्या करना है. So then the seniors there, they are saying कि now we don't know when the project will come. It might take 6 months or it might even take 1 year. तब तक तुम बस Udemy पे training करते बैठ. And then that person was like, if I don't work, now this is where the problem happens in the companies. You need to understand. On paper, your experience will grow, but if you don't work, your knowledge is not growing. And if your knowledge does not grow, and on paper you have become 3 years, 4 years, you start becoming outdated because market starts expecting different from you as a 4 years of experience person. Market becomes different. They expect more responsibility, more execution. And then what you guys will do? Those who are not able to solve these problems, they adapt to hacking themselves via playing games, politics, this, that, adjustment. Technology wise, they will not know things. That's where they will try to compensate by manipulating systems. And that's not where the growth lies. For how long you will do it? Someday it will last. Growth, learning is the only way. And this is where many juniors actually struggle. 0 to 4 years is a very critical phase. If you waste this time away, on paper, you will become 4 years, 5 years. Market expectation fully changes from you, and you're not able to build something which a junior can build. And that's the problem. So if in your beginning years, you're not getting enough exposure, it will have long-term consequences on your career. Long-term consequences. Okay, you will slow down your hikes, packages, promotions, or there could be another way. You just keep running project to project, keep switching. But okay, let me tell another real incident. Okay, recently, okay, in one of my friend's company, a person hired 15 years of experience. 15 years of experience, recent incident. Okay, and like, okay, they gave a very high package. So पहले तो नहीं दे रहे थे उसको. Based upon his technical knowledge, he was not given a high package. So then he really fought for it, demanded for it कि नहीं यार मेरे को चाहिए ये, I'll perform it. So what the company said, guys, listen, what the company said is, fine, we will pay you whatever package you are demanding, but we are upgrading your role. You are supposed to play this kind of a role in our system. Okay, this incident happened. Okay, that new guy was recruited just 3 months ago story. ठीक है, so उसको बोले we will pay whatever money you want, but now we are not hiring then you for this role which we were offering you, because you are asking more money and you have more experience, so we want to give you a bigger role with this money and you have to justify that. अब इंटरव्यू में तो everybody is like करेंगे आ जाओ दे दो पैसा कर लेंगे. ठीक है, तो पब्लिक बहुत हीटेड रहती है इंटरव्यू. अब unfortunate truth, after getting on the floor, not able to justify. Why? Past में कभी काम किया ही नहीं. Now what happens because of such situations? So this is the problem which some of you might also encounter in your career. If you don't learn, there will be long-term consequences. अब वो बंदा उतना आ गया and juniors are able to do good work than him. Juniors has even like 5 years of experience people are able to do things much better than him where he is having 15 years of experience. And the expectation is you are supposed to lead this full team and बच्चे ज़्यादा काम कर पा रहे, what to do with you? And do you think like IT is going to be like bet हाँ भाई कुछ नहीं होगा? It doesn't happen like that. So all of a sudden uska probation bhi they did not complete it and they are like, okay, fine, roll back, we are laying you off and we cannot convert you to a full-time employee. And now what will happen? That now you need to understand there is a problem in the person, but the person will always blame the system. Okay, bhai, company is heartless. You think about like this about human beings. What will happen to my family? Or if you cared so much about your family, you should have worked hard, not given excuses. You don't have right to really say that company should think about your family because you never thought about your family in first case. Okay, so when low performances will come, there will be consequences. And if you really ask me honestly, there has to be consequences. Low performers cannot be tolerated because they become burden in the system on good performers. They pull the system back, they become baggage, and they cut down the potential. And good people will resign because low performing people were there. This I literally encountered in my team. Okay, telling you the truth, this I literally encountered in my team. We had a very great technical lead almost a few years ago. Very great technical lead, banda zabardast tha. Uske team mein do low performer were there. I don't like to remove people or fire people, but I'm telling you the truth. There were two people who were average and below average. And for like months in a row, they were always doing shabby work. They never grew. Kanda kam, use cases missing, that missing, customer problem, this problem. But in production, zero issue was coming. In UAT also, zero bugs were coming. And these two guys were constantly doing that problem. The lead, who was a very good guy, okay, that person was working night and day to fix the mess which these people created. And like, kab tak karega? A point came, he got so much frustrated, so much irritated, and he's like, he just called me one day, Tausif, I cannot work, man. Okay? And 6 months tak he covered up for them. We never got anything in production. He never raised the situation to us, and we never got to know these two were the crappy people in the system. And then because of that, this person said, Tausif, I cannot work, man, because it is adding too much pressure on me, and I'm not able to deal with it anymore, and I cannot lead the team. I am quitting. Okay, and we tried to do whatever. We did some adjustments immediately. We moved him out from the lead role. I positioned another person there to take care. Then that when I positioned the new guy, he then started giving me the feedback about the juniors case. Me, ye problem hai, wo problem hai. That's where then we realized ki okay, so this guy previous lead was not able to bubble up those concerns, and he took everything on him. And after a few months, that person just resigned. Okay, he resigned, and the bad performers they have to anyways, they themselves they said ki no itna hard kaam humse nahi hoga, we are going. Now you need to understand ki IT industry will justify you with great money, but you need to earn your spot in the industry. Mama chacha ka ghar nahi hai. Okay, and now unfortunately dekho, market is getting worse. You're already seeing layoff trends, recession trends, news and all that happening. Yesterday, I think somebody of our group itself in the morning, I think Dilshad or somebody was saying he joined a course where guaranteed placement were there. They were earlier promising 6 months mein place karenge. Now they are saying ke 1 year mein karenge. Somewhere market is impacted. Recently, we got some HR itself, right? They said ki their company's hiring is freezed. Okay, some of the European clients which we work with, my friends work with, those guys are also doing limited cost cutting. For next 1 year, this much is the budget. We cannot hire more positions. Market is changing. Abhi pata nahi to what extent the consequences will be. But I really want you to understand, if you are there already in IT industry, don't take your job for granted. Don't take it for granted. You should be lucky that yes, you have it. and you have to become the best. So whatever we discussed in the past 2 weeks, put your everything to it, become the A player, take the system's responsibility, try to fix the system. Hide and seek might not work for long. Market, we don't know how next 1 year will go through. पता नहीं, 1 year may hope things get better, worse, we don't know. But if you are good, that's the only survival mechanism. Okay? And so make sure you try to belong in that category, take the ownership. Okay, and if your friends are there, let me tell you, if knowledge is not up to the mark, consequences can come. So if your friends are there, spread this message, whatever we are discussing, learning, spread this message to them. The blog link is already available. Give the videos to them so that they can also learn, guys, because it will come, people will be jobless. And then market not consuming people, they being laid off, kya hoga? Consequences will be hard. Okay, so first of all, those who are already working, give your best shot, learn, grow, adapt, and try to get even stronger in whatever you do. Don't give excuses, blames. Don't try to play hide and seek in industry. Guys, managers know ki kaun kaisa hai. You cannot manipulate the system. You cannot manipulate the system. Nikal jata hai. Truth comes out in the long run. Okay? And you tell your friends also, whatever we are discussing, share the message to them, give the videos to them. And from 5th December, we will again launch another batch. So if you can involve them there, let's do it, because next 3 months tak pushing for knowledge. Okay? So tune up your mind for that. Next, for the job seekers, dekho, all the job seekers, I don't want to dishearten you, but you have to face the truth. If the market is good, if it is giving openings, well and good. If it is not giving, you need to grow in your patience. Frustration say nothing is going to happen. You cannot lose your cool. You have to constantly keep working, upgrading, and trying for interview. Whatever you can do, you have to do that. Okay? You have to constantly keep learning. Let's say 1 saal bhi lag raha hai agar job for getting that, for market to be back. But for entire 1 year, you keep constantly learning. You build up some mini projects for your own self. You do a lot of POCs for your own self. Learn new technology. Try to become a full stack. Jitna seek sakte ho, whatever project knowledge, your knowledge, and keep hunting for interviews. Don't sit back. Keep hunting, try. Here apply, LinkedIn follow up, chase with people, try to check for referrals if you get to know, like full jaan laga. And you need to understand, industry is always going to be there. It doesn't shut down. Projects will be there, people will be there, business is online, it will come. Okay, but you need to have patience. If you just drop your weapons and disappear, that is not going to work out for you. Okay, so patient raho, knowledge badhate raho, and hunting karte raho. Be peaceful. With time, you will be getting the job. And those who are already in, don't take your job for granted. Work your best self out there. Okay, so fine, we are done with the week 2 of our program. We still have 2 more weeks to go. Okay, so next week again, we have not yet done, yesterday we said, right, we will be doing this code review related basics, branching related a few things. So we still want to cover those areas. Plus we will be focusing on corporate communication related skills next time. And there are more sessions which we have to do for the corporate. I'm actually thinking how your ideal day should be from morning till evening in corporate. From stand up till the time you close, how do you engage to get maximum productivity at whatever challenge you do? Yesterday we spoke about sprint in 2 weeks duration, how the focus should be. Now let's even get into a daily basis what you guys should do from morning till evening at work basically. Okay, I feel 3rd week is really going to make you more productive at your job. More checklists will come, more actions we will take. And guys, we are going to even launch some morning routine related habits which will energize your brain and the body so that you perform to your fullest through the day. So we will launch all of those things in the coming week 3, and then week 4 may or more habit tightening, we will do more thought process evolve. Okay, so fine, it's a Friday. Next we will be meeting Monday evening. Sharing the attendance, guys, don't close the day. Sharing the attendance, just 1 second. Industry needs good people, and let me tell you, there are very few good people. You can literally count them in hands. Okay, rest majority is average crowd in industry. Majority is like that. Okay, try to be minimum B player. B के नीचे C आ गए तो market में you're not even required. इतना bad है C का situation. And C is those people meeting requirement with follow-ups. हुआ क्या? So that's bad. Okay. So B guys means they are meeting requirements, trying to go exceeding also, and they are self-sufficient independently. So whatever we discussed yesterday, ownership, following up, reading the tickets, understanding it, asking questions, that is self-sufficiently you are able to manage yourself. Okay, एक second guys, sharing the attendance link. And it's Friday evening today. Okay, copy. Here's the attendance link. Ooh. Code for today is 5656. Here's the link. Fine. And I'm even pasting 5th December related. Okay, 5th December related registration link. So if you feel your friends and all are there, so you can even pass it to them so they can also try to really evolve in whatever job they are doing. Okay. And there is this one thing, okay, I'll tell you, which I realized based upon my past whatever team experience. Even though all my recordings are available on internet, on YouTube and all that, okay, still 80% of the people will not be getting the benefit because knowledge ka problem nahi hai. You go to books, you sit on internet, you will find all the stuff. The problem is dedicatedly applying that knowledge at work. So all those guys in this call who are very regular for these 2 weeks, this will implement and apply on you and you will become better. Why? Because you're not just listening video, you are physically involving every single day, focused 1 hour, 9 to 10. You're coming, you're listening, you're making it into a system where we are living it across days. Slowly and steadily, we are giving attendance, form tracking and all. Nothing, but you're not just dumping the knowledge on you. We are using this power of community. 60 people daily coming, learning, coming, learning, coming, learning. So when you are that much involved, then the chances of your success automatically grow. If you give all the 20 videos one time and like dekh le, people will not even cross 4 hours with that. Okay, people are not inspired enough to do everything. Udemy courses, people start, they stop. You have to build that quality in you where dedication, commitment are very hardcore. Okay, that's where I'm saying even if recordings and all are available, but ask your friends to join 5th December onwards freshly so that we can start with it again step by step, because that is going to give them more value. Okay, and plus you also so join next week. We will take into corporate communication and more like day-to-day activities. So it's a 4-week program. We are just 50% done till now. Okay, more is to come, guys. Chalo. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice, peaceful Friday and enjoy your weekend. See you guys Monday 9 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Bye, guys. Take care, everybody.